Right, give this just a second to load. Okay, so before you start the POGL, we need to talk about one more important thing that hopefully this is going to make your life significantly easier. So just like we had to really focus on the importance of the hydrogen ion gradient in the functioning of ATP synthase and the production of ATP, there's one other aspect of these biological pathways that are incredibly important and can sometimes be confusing, and those are electron carrier molecules. So electron carriers are also called electron shuttles, and they're small organic molecules that play key roles in cellular respiration and photosynthesis. So, the name describes their function. They pick up electrons from one molecule when bonds are broken and then drop them off at another. And this powers different parts of cellular respiration and photosynthesis. So let's look at two of the electron carriers you're going to be looking at today when you do the POGL. So this is going to help make the POGL easier to understand. So we have NAD and FAD. NAD and FAD are abbreviations for the electron carrier's really, really long name that nobody cares about. Scientists call it NAD and FAD. So I'm going to click on this quick video. It's like 2 minutes, and it's a not European, but like English lady. Anyway, so I'm going to click on this, and then I'll come back to you guys in just a second. Yeah, we're going to watch it this way.
This video is covering NAD+, and it's made for my 5th year biology class to help them understand this particularly important molecule in preparation for studying cellular respiration. It's really important that you know the full name of the molecule. It's nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. NAD+ is a carrier molecule. It traps electrons and protons and transfers them to where they're needed in the cell. And that's the best way of describing it. State that it's a carrier molecule, state that it traps electrons and protons, and finally that it transfers those electrons and protons to where they're needed in the cell. It's really important that you know how NAD+ traps the electrons and protons, and where indeed are these electrons and protons coming from? Well, firstly, the electrons and the protons are coming from hydrogen atoms, pairs of hydrogen atoms, and so whenever we consider NAD+ in cellular respiration, we always consider electrons and protons coming from pairs of hydrogen atoms. So the details of this reaction are NAD+ will trap 2 electrons and 1 proton. Remember, they're coming from hydrogen atoms, and so is converted or is reduced to NADH. And when you compare NAD+ with NADH, we consider NAD+ to be a low energy molecule and NADH to be high energy. To make our equation perfect, we have to account for that one other proton. Remember, we're talking about pairs of hydrogen atoms, 2 electrons and 2 protons. So there's one other proton that needs to be added into the equation. So let's sum up. NAD+ is known as nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a carrier molecule, and it traps electrons and protons and transfers these to where they're needed in the cell. The electrons and the protons are from pairs of hydrogen atoms, and because we're getting ready to study cellular respiration, we're stating that these hydrogen atoms come from glucose or other substrate molecules in cellular respiration. We know that NAD+ is a low energy molecule, and when it traps those electrons and that proton, it turns into NADH, which is a high energy molecule. It's really important that you always remember to write that once NADH transfers those electrons and that proton, that NAD+ is regenerated, all ready to do some more trapping and transferring.
Okay, so it's really not important that you know the actual name of it. That will always be given, or you can look it up on the internet. Like I said, everyone just calls it NADH or NAD or NADH. So there is another molecule that is important in cellular respiration, and it's FAD, and it also has like flava, blah, blah, blah. Again, nobody cares. We just call it NAD and FAD. So think about NAD plus as like a taxi cab. And so NAD within a cell, along with 2 hydrogen atoms that are part of the food that are supplying energy for the body. So the electrons are going to hop in the back of the NAD taxi cab along with a proton to balance out the charges. And NADH is reduced to NAD by accepting those electron passengers, if you will, and it also picks up another hydrogen ion to become NAD. So I know this sounds a little confusing, but it's really quite simple. As soon as NADH, taxicab, drops off the electrons where they're needed, it goes back to being an empty cab and it's NAD. So NADH is going to carry those electrons to a later stage of respiration and drop them off. So really, it's fairly simple. If you have NADH plus your 2 electrons and your hydrogen to make NADH, you know that as long as the H is attached to NAD, you know that the electrons are also there. Same thing with FAD. So FAD is neutral, picks up 2 electrons, has to pick up 2 protons or hydrogen ions to balance it out, and so it becomes FADH2. So NAD plus with electrons becomes NADH, and as soon as it drops them off, it becomes NAD plus again. So again, as long as hydrogen is attached there, then electrons have to be present too, and so that's how you'll know. Same thing with FAD. Got the 2 electrons, it's FADH2, drops them off, it becomes FAD again. So that should help you with the POGIL in understanding the electron carrier portion of it. So now you can stop and go do the POGIL.